Hey, what is up mortals, it is Rin here, and before we get into today's video, there is something I'd like to say. I'd like to let you all know that we have a merch store. Some of the items in it are only available for a limited amount of time, so if you are interested, go into the description and check it out. Each purchase helps us make more content. Secondly, if you didn't know, only 7.2% of you guys are subscribed to us, so please hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon. Now with that out of the way, let's get into the video.
Smoke coursed through the air of the withered forest. The Sound Ninja gazed down at the crater that was left behind. Two of them leaped from the trees they stood upon to see up close the outcome of the damage. "I don't see them. Are you sure we got them?" Dosu looked around, frustrated, scratching his scalp out of bad habit as they continued the search. Checking under different kinds of flora, the Sound Four eventually broadened their scale of search outside the blast zone, thinking the explosion blew them farther than previously anticipated. Sakura opened her eyes to the sun rays peeking through the little spaces between the leaves, sticks, and roots. She laid on her back. She was hesitant to move, scoping the situation. From her understanding, she ended up hidden under a pile of shrubbery. She pushed herself into a sitting position to look around, obviously to recent past events. An aching pain from her scalp barraged her senses. Sakura lifted her hand to rub the potential injury. Sure enough, moisture ran through her fingers. I barely remember what happened. Was it a paper bomb? Wait, Sasuke, Naruto? She immediately relapsed her tone into a more preserved state, covering her lips with her hands. Fear enveloped her, realizing the danger she potentially placed herself. The Chunin exams are still going on, and she could have blown her cover. She focused her gaze through the cracks like a frantic dog. Sakura did her best to keep her breathing under control. Her knee tipped over. Something rolled under her shin, which caused her to fall backwards. Sakura glanced over at what she tripped over to see the heaven scroll they received from Anko. She wasn't too happy with this outcome. Lost, injured, and in possession of the team's scroll. With the scroll now in hand, she threw caution to the wind when leaving her flora cocoon, keeping note of her footwork not to step on anything which could make noise. She began traversing the forest, looking for any signs of commotion. On her way, she found ninja headbands, rogue shuriken, kunai, and jutsu damage throughout the forest. This place is a war zone. How long have I been out? I need to find Naruto and Sasuke soon, or else. A subtle shift in the wind set alarms in Sakura's ears. It sounded like blades cutting through the air. The noise grew louder as the time went on. She double backflipped, landing gracefully as the shuriken stabbed itself violently in a log. She gazed at the origin of the trajectory path as the shuriken was in, but no one was present. Before she had time to react, a kunai pressed up against her neck. The body heat of a stranger lingered from behind her. A haunting sly whisper coursed through her ear. "Any sudden moves or such as yelp, and your head's rolling. In an inside voice, you'll answer my questions. Are you Sakura from Team 7? Sakura did little more than nod in agreement to the question. Feeling the thin cold metal press on her throat, the stranger smiled as his face lit up. "Good. You'll be bait for the blonde one." The man's arms quivered with chills, shaking a kunai along her neck from just thinking about Naruto. Sakura's fear shifted to worry. What are you talking about exactly? Did Naruto do something?" The mysterious ninja chuckled with panic-stricken anguish. He began pushing Sakura forward, closer to a deserted battleground in the forest. "The better question, my dear, is what he didn't do." Sakura was ill-stricken with grief by Naruto upon the scene before her. There was a lack of life, a wasteland of what looked like a war zone, craters and unconscious bodies plastered across the landscape. At least 2 different teams worth of ninjas sprawled out on the floor, and trees like ornaments. Her lips quivered. She was sure none of them died, but limbs are facing in ways they shouldn't. "Naruto did this?" The ninja smiled again as the giant snake in front of them began to move. In reality, there was no war zone, only Orochimaru holding Sakura by the blind spot and the snake opening its mouth wide open. Sakura heard the tongue of the snake flicker and broke herself out of the Genjutsu. Orochimaru went to slice her throat but scratched a log instead. Sakura was found aerial flipping over Orochimaru as she tossed shuriken at him. He blocked each one with his kunai as the snake went to lunge out towards Sakura. "Fireball jutsu!" The snake's head blasted sideways by a massive fireball. Sasuke landed in front of Sakura with his head balled in front of his mouth. Fireballs emitted from his hand in a rapid-fire state. Sasuke? Sasuke halted his attack and grabbed Sakura's arm, and they both leaped through the trees. After some time, Sasuke and Sakura found a cave entrance and fled inside it. Sakura, are you okay? Lost you back there in the explosion. Sasuke opened his ninja bag and pulled out some paper bandages to wrap around her head injury. Sakura blushed from the close contact she was sharing with him. Where's Naruto? That's a question I was hoping to ask you. Guess we're all split up from the blast. Well, at least we found each other. Sakura's cheek grew darker as they blushed crimson from his words. Meanwhile, constant shifts in the leaves occurred by a slithering entity within the forest. The noise enhanced with time as the heads of the snakes peeked into the cave. Swiftly, they slithered inside by the hundreds. Sasuke activated his Sharingan and reacted accordingly. He executed a fireball jutsu from his mouth as they both leaped out of there. The snakes disintegrated from the flames, and a paper bomb Sasuke left behind went off within the cave. The giant snake leaped out towards them wide-mouthed. They both locked hands and lunged over each other, using the shifts in their weights to avoid the mouth. They traveled down the snake's scaly body by cartwheeling while keeping their hands locked, throwing one another over each other's shoulders. Sasuke threw Sakura at the snake from behind and used her chakra control to run up the snake. She drew her kunai and stabbed it into the snake's scales as she ran up its back. Meanwhile, Sasuke began to rebound off the trees and stabbed wire-attached kunai to each trunk. The wire sprawled out tightly in the air as Sasuke set them on fire. Sakura leaped off the snake and threw a kunai paper bomb at it, which exploded on impact. The explosion forced its wound to open further, and the momentum forced the snake into the wall of ignited wire, entangling in it. The fire used the snake's blood like fuel, igniting it and internally burning it as it hissed in pain. Sakura and Sasuke both landed on the floor, recovering their oxygen. Blah! I hate snakes. What do they feed Genin these days? You two will be detrimental to my work. I'm sure of it. He lashed out his arms where snakes flew out from under his sleeve. His neck extended as well, where his mouth bared fangs. Sasuke barely wasted any time and pushed Sakura out the way. Orochimaru's head bit Sasuke in the nape of his neck, where a tattoo began to form on the skin. The other snakes chased after Sakura as she took off from her position. Using her chakra control, she ran up a trunk where the snakes followed suit. When in a high altitude, Sakura pushed herself off the trunk and dove down, throwing kunai at their heads, pinning them to the wood. She landed feet first before rushing towards Sasuke, where Orochimaru waited with an ambush. Sakura and Orochimaru traded blows with one another. However, the pink genin, as exhausted as she is, she couldn't keep this up for long. She had to think of something. She could feel her chakra draining from each point of contact she made with Orochimaru. Is he siphoning my chakra? She leaped backwards to rethink her strategy, but her emotions and worry for Sasuke began to take over as he agonized on the floor, holding his neck. Sakura reached out to Sasuke when an arm grabbed her other wrist. The next thing she knew, the force of the arm's tug threw her backwards, hitting a tree. Her vision was hazy and her head injury opened back up. She could barely make out the fuzzy blurs of 5 people, including Orochimaru. She slowly crawled towards Sasuke as he was still sprawled on the floor, reaching back to her with his other hand gripped to his neck. I'll leave the rest to you four. Finish up here. And I want the boy alive. I don't care what you do to the girl. It'll take a bit to recover my chakra, but I'll be nearby. Orochimaru's body flickered from the area. 2 of the 3 sound ninja chuckled as they made their way over to Sakura, leaving Sasuke to his devices. The one left behind played puppy guard for Sasuke to make sure he wouldn't pull any funny moves. The other 2 approached Sakura. She could barely stay conscious as they picked her up by her arms and hair. She quivered and shouted as threads of her hair pulled from her scalp. Sasuke was helpless as the pain from the mark grew more and more undesirable. Kin and Dosu slammed Sakura against the floor, opening her head injury further. You're pretty cute for a Kunoichi of the Hidden Leaf. I know you had a third-party member with you. You wouldn't happen to know where he went, do you? Crimson dripped down from her head and mixed in with her tears as the liquid bled into the dirt. She kept her mouth shut, her stubbornness to share information she's oblivious of, began to piss off the Sound Ninja. They began to stretch her arms behind her back, dislocating her shoulders as she shrieked in agony. She banged her head against the ground to focus the pain elsewhere. They pulled her by the hair to keep her from doing so as they laughed. Kin reached down and pulled the Heaven Scroll from Sakura's bag. "We're going to be needing this so we can qualify for the next exam. Better luck next year." This cruel, inhuman treatment of a teammate was enough for Sasuke to break out from his shell. His emotions riled up inside him, and the mark began to spread like a parasite across his skin. His lips twisted into a wild grin. Zaku turned towards Sasuke next to him. "Oh no, you don't!" Sasuke grasped Zaku's face with immense gripping strength, tearing the skin around his lips as he lifted him off the ground before slamming him down. His chakra control guided Sasuke's ninja wire to sew itself within Zaku's torn face. As Sasuke grappled the wire, tossing Zaku onto the other side of his shoulder, Sasuke lit the wire on fire, which ignited Zaku's flesh. The ghastly screams of Zaku that followed alerted the others as they dropped Sakura on the floor. Wasting no time, Dosu used shockwave jutsu to catch Sasuke off guard. Sasuke merely kicked Zaku upwards. He held him up like an ignited meat shield from the shockwaves. Kin went for a head-first ambush. Attempts at Sasuke failed as he tossed Zaku's body straight towards Dosu, who had to stop his jutsu to dodge. Kin drew her senbon and fist fought with Sasuke, each blow effortlessly nullified by him. Sasuke slid through Kin's legs, grabbing her ankles and front-flipped from a sitting position. Kin flew face-first into the floor, breaking her nose. Sasuke continued by lifting her leg by the ankle, twisting it backwards, completely snapping off the joint. Her foot dangled loosely from the rest of her knee. The pain was so dire that the scream that escaped her vocal cords faded into silence, followed by a massive strain to breathe back in. Sasuke's head cocked towards Dosu before popping his neck, stepping over Kin's back as he walked intimidatingly towards Dosu. He was ill-stricken with fear from the tatted-up monster before him. Sasuke slowly approached Dosu when the giant snake lunged at Sasuke, ramming him tree after tree as it slithered swiftly across the forest. My oh my. What happened here? It looks like my little gift was more efficient for an Uchiha than I originally thought possible. Orochimaru arose from the shadows as his tongue dialed from one end of his upper lip to the other. This really is quite the spectacle before me. I can't wait to see how you'll grow, young Sasuke Uchiha. Orochimaru's satisfied demeanor soon morphed into confusion from the subtle darkening of the sky. He gazed up to what could cause the shadow as his eyes gazed at the Nagini. The snake's body was sliced cleanly in half as its trajectory was towards Orochimaru. What? Orochimaru leaped out of the way as the Nagini landed on multiple trees, tearing them out of the branches. Orochimaru bit his lip in frustration. There's no way! My curse mark gave you that kind of power! A voice of different genin echoed from beyond the trees. Oh, is that why Sasuke looks like this? Orochimaru turned towards the general direction that the voice was coming from. His gaze saw that the genin was in orange tracksuit and blonde hair. Sasuke was unconscious as he laid limp in Naruto's arms, his other hand gripping both the Earth and Heaven Scroll. You know, I'm not the biggest fan of snakes, and you'll pay for what you did to Sasuke. Naruto looked towards Sakura, seeing the injuries she's dealt, followed by her swollen red eyes from crying. Naruto clenched his fist before setting Sasuke down next to her. His face grew serious as his eyes pierced the pale snake sage before him. You'll be answering to me now, Naruto Uzumaki!
Thank you all for watching the video to the end. Now there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. On behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank the writer for this video as well as the editors for this video. Their details will be in the description. If you are a voice actor, editor, or writer, or you're interested in becoming one of those, go into the Discord that's in the description of this video and hit up the head of one of those areas. We're always looking for members to join us. That's it from us for today's video. So thank you all for watching and have a great day.